Ever since the release of 1982's Sokoban, a super simple puzzle game where you organise a warehouse by pushing boxes around on a 2D grid, games inspired by it have been a staple of the puzzle game genre. There are loads of great modern sokobans that take the core mechanic of just pushing boxes and use it to create wildly different experiences, like Babbit Is You with its mind-bending rule-based puzzles, the open Metroidvania-style world of Isles of Sea and Sky, and the multi-layered mysteries of Void Stranger. But a personal favourite of mine, going way back to 1996, is a little game called Mania. Released for the original Game Boy and produced by none other than Shigeru Miyamoto, its most unique mechanic is your ability, as a mole, to dig underground, meaning that every puzzle is spread across two separate layers, one above the other. The main block pushing element is moving around these black balls which are needed to break the door at the end of most screens. But as well as just pushing or pulling a ball one tile at a time, you can also grab hold of it, hold B to charge, then throw it across the screen, causing it to keep moving in a straight line, flattening any enemies in its path until it hits a solid wall. And that got me thinking, what if I replaced those mysterious black balls with footballs, switched out the end of level doors for goals, and scrapped being able to move the ball one tile at a time completely, making a football-themed sokoban game revolving entirely around Mania's throw mechanic. Sounded like a pretty good idea to me. So I started by getting an idea of the art style by making the grass and lines for the pitch, and designing the player character. Then I got the grid-based movement working, so he's animated while walking between grid spaces, but always stops in the middle of a tile. Next I added the ball, which you can walk up to and kick to send it rolling across the screen in a straight line, which of course worked perfectly on the first attempt. But after that was fixed, I needed to decide what to use as the solid walls, which would stop the ball from rolling off into the distance, while also fitting with the football theme. And what I ended up with was to use these training dummies, which are most often used to stand in for defenders when practicing free kicks. So now when the ball rolls into one of these dummies, it bounces back to the last tile and comes to a stop, while the dummy itself also reacts to the impact with an animation based on the direction it's hit from. And it also reacts to being kicked, just in case the player messes up a shot and needs something to take their anger out on. But with those in place, all that was left for the core mechanics was a way to actually complete a level. So I added in a goal with solid posts on either side which the ball can bounce off, and 3 empty tiles of net in the middle for you to score in. With the win condition of course being to get the ball into the net without it rolling out of bounds, which would restart the level. My overall plan for the game was to make 30 levels, all taking place on the same size pitch, or half a pitch I guess, with the first 10 levels just teaching the basic mechanics and building up the complexity using just the training dummies. Then the second and third sets of 10 levels would each add a new puzzle mechanic. So the first level teaches the controls and gives you a straight shot into the middle of the goal, which you really shouldn't be missing. Then the next few levels add more and more complicated mazes of dummies to navigate, before level 6 introduces the idea of having to score with multiple balls, which later leads into a mechanic which I kinda made by accident, where kicking one ball into another transfers the first ball's speed into the second ball. I say I made it by accident because I was originally imagining only ever having one ball in every level, and my way of having the training dummies react to both being hit by the ball and being kicked by the player was to have the ball kick whatever it collides with, just like the player would. So when I later thought about how only being able to score one ball in each tile of the net meant that adding a second ball would open up a load of new level design possibilities, I also discovered that having one ball kick another made for a pretty interesting gameplay mechanic. The new mechanic for levels 11 to 20 was to add additional players, which I'll call teammates, who can kick and redirect a ball if it rolls in front of them. This was also inspired by a later game mechanic in Mania, with these arrow tiles which redirect any object you push or throw onto them, but with the added ability to rotate teammates by kicking them, changing both the tile they're looking at and the direction they kick in. And they also sound really happy about being booted in the shins. One issue I had with this mechanic was that up to this point it had been possible for the player to move almost immediately after kicking a ball, and there were a couple of levels in the second set of 10 where you could kinda break and shortcut the level by setting up your teammates in a way that let you walk into the path of the ball while it was crossing in front of the goal, stopping it early and giving you a free shot. I played around with making that an intentional solution to 1 or 2 levels, but it wasn't very intuitive and usually ended up requiring really precise movement and timing, which wasn't really the direction I wanted to take the game, preferring to make it purely about the logic of puzzle solving. So I instead made it that you're prevented from moving while any ball is moving, removing any possibility of you getting in its way. And for the final new mechanic, I added these training cones which you can kick to move them one tile in any direction as many times as you want, but if a ball collides with a cone, it's instantly destroyed. So each cone in a level can be used to block the path of a ball one time, adding a whole new layer of complexity. And the ways you can use them get increasingly more complicated through the last 10 levels, especially once you get to the levels which include both cones and teammates together. But after all the gameplay mechanics were in, and I designed all 30 levels, all that was left was some final polishing and a few finishing touches, including a basic save system which keeps track of your current level between sessions, and a start screen with the game's title, Soko Striker, which I went with over something like sokoban, just because I didn't really fancy getting chased out of England for calling football soccer. And the most common bit of initial feedback I got was that the speed of the game was way too slow, both the player's movement speed and the speed of the ball. So I increased both and also added the ability to sprint by holding shift. Of course, if you beat all 30 levels, there's a little victory cutscene at the end, but if you want to see that, you're going to need to head on over to Soko Striker's itch.io page to play it for yourself. It's totally free and playable in your browser, so please give it a shot and let me know what you think down in the comments. And be sure to like the video if you made it to the end, subscribe to see more game projects like this in the future, and I will hope to see you in the next one.